Traveller, something quiet has begun moving through our sky, and it did not arrive by chance. You weren't meant to pass by this night untouched. A distant signal older than memory has gently drawn you here. What are the odds that an interstellar object born beyond our sun would reveal organic molecules, precise thermal rhythms, and a faint glow that science struggles to name? What if a silent body drifting between stars carried patterns that look less like chaos and more like response? Now picture it. A dark, elongated shape gliding inward its surface, breathing softly with light passing through the long shadows of our solar system. No alarms, no answers, only questions suspended in the dark. Stay with me. Tonight the universe whispers again. Long before alarms or headlines, there was only a quiet shift in attention, a turning of mirrors and sensors far from Earth. The James Webb telescope, suspended in cold balance, adjusted its gaze toward a visitor that had no map and no history. An interstellar body known as Three-Eye Atlas moved through the dark, carrying the silence of places where stars are sparse and time stretches thin. I remember nights like this, the low hum of instruments, the steady breath of cooling systems, hours spent watching faint points of light refuse to behave. Discovery rarely arrives with drama. It comes as a feeling first, a sense that something small has begun to disagree with what we know. When Webb gathered its first detailed readings, the delta did not settle easily. The surface of Atlas did not scatter light the way dust usually does. There was restraint in it, order, a reflective behaviour that suggested structure rather than erosion. Patterns appeared where randomness was expected, and they persisted when conditions changed. For days, the object was watched without interruption. Observatories across Earth and beyond aligned their efforts not out of ceremony, but unease. Light curves shifted in response to angle rather than wind. Emissions tightened instead of dispersing. The object did not drift as debris does. It behaved. This is where the story slows and where caution matters. In science, behaviour is a heavy word. It does not mean intention. It does not mean life. It means response, a system that changes in relation to its surroundings. That alone was enough to unsettle long-held models. As Atlas approached the sun, it slipped briefly from view. For 73 hours, its signal passed behind solar glare, and the instruments fell quiet. Absence can be revealing. When the object returned, it carried more complexity than before. Thermal maps showed points of warmth arranged with careful spacing. Heat rose and faded in rhythm, not like cooling stone, but like circulation under a shell. I've stared at enough graphs to know when coincidence thins. These heat paths branched and rejoined, forming networks that echoed forms seen in biology, though scaled beyond comfort. The language of metabolism hovered at the edge of the discussion, and then retreated. Scientists are trained to step back from such edges. Spectral readings added another layer. Chains of carbon appeared with a bias that chemistry alone struggles to explain. Not impossible, just unlikely. These molecules favoured one orientation over another, as if shaped by selection rather than chance. No single signal proved anything, but together they refused to dissolve into noise. At this stage, internal reports changed tone. Words like anomaly gave way to profile. The object was no longer described as a remnant. It became a system, one that adjusted its surface response with precision, releasing energy in steady cycles that did not match solar heating alone. Traveller, this is the moment where certainty loosens its grip. As Atlas moved deeper, its surface reacted to bursts of solar wind with timing too clean to ignore. Material was released away from the sun, forming arcs that curved with intention like balance. Torque remained stable. Rotation smoothed instead of tumbling. The object appeared to manage itself against stress-conserving form where erosion should have ruled. This does not require life, but it does require complexity. Biologists and physicists spoke across disciplines, careful not to lean too far. An adaptive index was calculated, a measure of response efficiency against environmental pressure. Atlas exceeded every known non-biological system, not by a margin, by a gulf. I have learned that numbers can feel louder than words. They echo long after meetings end. As days passed, simulations were run backward. The adjustment seen near the sun appeared to begin before the stress arrived. Anticipation is not prediction, but it unsettles in a similar way. The idea emerged that Atlas housed an internal process, one capable of storing state and responding with delay and purpose. Still restraint held, new categories were written, not comet, not probe, something else. A reactive entity. A classification meant to describe behavior, not meaning. And yet meaning crept in. The silence around Atlas began to feel active, not empty, tuned, as if the object carried its own rules for engagement, revealing just enough to be noticed, then folding back into quiet. I think often of entropy at moments like this. The universe tends toward disorder. Structures decay, signals fade. Yet here was a body that resisted that drift, maintaining coherence under forces meant to unravel it. Listener, it is all right to feel small here. The discovery phase did not end with answers. It ended with a widening of perspective. The realization that our definitions may be narrow, shaped by what survives near a single star. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, shaped by laws we only partly understand. As Atlas continued inward, instruments prepared for deeper study. The story was no longer about detection. It was about interpretation. About how far we allow evidence to speak before fear or wonder interrupts. Silence is the universe thinking. For now, we rest at this edge. A point where data accumulates, and meaning waits. Where certainty softens and curiosity remains. The object moves on, carrying its patterns through the dark while we remain beneath our sky listening. It's all right to not understand. Tonight the universe whispers again, but this time the whisper carries structure. After the first close passage of Atlas, attention shifted away from its outline and toward its behaviour. Instruments that once traced motion began listening for rhythm. Spectroscopy replaced silhouettes, and what emerged was not a louder mystery but a quieter one, steady and difficult to dismiss. The outer surface of Atlas reflected more than dust and ice. Long carbon chains appeared across its shell, arranged in clusters rather than scattered fragments. These molecules did not drift freely into space as cometary debris would. They remained localized, returning to the same regions as the object rotated, as if governed by an internal cycle rather than external erosion. I have watched signals decay for years, fading into background noise as distance grows. Atlas did the opposite. Its molecular emissions repeated with narrow regularity, cycling every few minutes with minimal drift. Stability like that is rare in space, where turbulence and radiation usually smear precision into randomness. Here, precision endured. Thermal readings reinforced the pattern. Heat did not simply rise and dissipate. It moved. Warm regions migrated across the surface along paths that repeated over time, tracing networks that resembled distribution rather than accident. The object appeared to channel energy, not absorb it, blindly redirecting excess away from vulnerable zones. Listener, this is where familiarity begins to trouble us. Not because it proves anything alive, but because it mirrors logic we know. Regulation, balance, conservation. These principles are older than biology, yet biology is one of the few places we see them sustained so cleanly. Chemical analysis deepened the unease. Trace elements emerged where probability suggested they should be rare. Phosphorus appeared in clustered blooms aligning with the same hexagonal pattern seen in light and heat. These were not diffuse clouds. They were anchored, recurring and consistent across observation windows. Phosphorus is not life, but it is a participant in life's grammar. Seeing it organised this way forced uncomfortable questions about scaffolding and preservation. Some argued exotic mineral chemistry. Others pointed out that minerals usually fracture symmetry over time. Atlas maintained it. Radio observations added another layer. Short bursts appeared, paused, and returned with slight timing offsets that correlated with changes in orientation. Noise does not pause with purpose. These emissions did. Their intervals clustered within predictable ranges, as if governed by internal thresholds rather than random release. Silence followed each burst, long enough to feel intentional, though intention remained an unspoken word. The object revealed then withdrew again and again. In deep space research, silence is rarely empty. It is filled with waiting, with systems holding state until conditions align. I remember nights when we stared at quiet screens, wondering whether the absence of data was failure or restraint. Atlas brought that feeling back. It did not flood instruments, it rationed itself. That alone set it apart from everything inert we have studied. As Atlas moved deeper into the inner system, light began to behave strangely. Faint glows appeared not on sunlit regions but in cold zones shielded from direct radiation. These emissions activated only under specific flux thresholds, then faded without degrading the compounds that produced them. The glow pulsed with rotation, returning again and again like a marker carried along a wheel. On Earth, similar behavior is seen in organisms that use light for signaling or energy management. In space, such persistence is rare. Most luminescence burns out quickly. This did not. Traveller caution matters here. Similarity is not identity. Pattern does not equal purpose. But repetition across chemistry, heat and light demands attention. Nature can be complex, but it is seldom coordinated across so many domains without feedback. Polarization studies revealed another anomaly. Reflected light twisted subtly as it left the surface, showing optical activity, normally associated with asymmetrical molecules. Even more unsettling was the imbalance. One orientation dominated far beyond what random chemistry predicts. Selection seemed implied, though no selector was visible. This imbalance shifted with orientation, compensating for changes in solar angle. As the object tilted, the molecular handedness oscillated slightly, maintaining overall stability. That suggested internal correction, a system adjusting itself against environmental stress rather than yielding to it. Thermal networks evolved as well. Heat pathways rearranged over time, migrating toward polar regions where controlled vents released molecular vapor. These releases did not destabilize rotation. Instead, they preserved it, maintaining axis alignment with remarkable precision. I have watched comets tear themselves apart under lesser stress. Atlas remained intact. It did not erode. It managed. That difference carries weight even when explanations remain incomplete. As data accumulated, discussions grew quieter, not because certainty arrived, but because speculation reached its limit. Each new measurement fit too well. Contradictions were rare. Harmony replaced chaos, and harmony in space is unsettling. Some researchers suggested that Atlas functioned like a distributed system with no central core, only responsive regions, sharing information through physical processes we do not yet understand. Others proposed smart materials shaped long ago, designed to endure interstellar transit by adapting rather than resisting. None of these ideas were confirmed. All of them were plausible enough to be uncomfortable. The object refused simple dismissal. It did not behave like debris. It behaved like something shaped by constraint and memory. Listener, this is the moment where humility enters. We are trained to classify, to reduce to name. Atlas resisted naming. Every category bent under its weight, forcing revisions rather than conclusions. As it approached perihelion again, emission slowed, then ceased. Not abruptly, but smoothly, as if a cycle had completed. The glow faded, the pulses stopped, the surface returned to quiet reflectivity. Atlas did not escalate, it rested. Silence returned deeper than before, not the silence of emptiness, but of containment, a system at equilibrium conserving itself against further exposure. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying its rhythms through regions where no observer waits. Whether that rhythm is natural complexity or the echo of distant design remains unanswered. The signal phase ended not with revelation but with restraint. Atlas had shown enough to unsettle certainty, then folded back into quiet. It left us with patterns instead of proclamations, with consistency instead of confession. Silence is the universe thinking, and for now it is enough to listen. Silence returned in a way that felt deliberate, though nothing in the data used that word. After weeks of patterns, pulses, and careful revelations, Atlas entered a phase of quiet that resisted interpretation. Instruments remained fixed. Mirrors stayed aligned, yet what had once spoken through rhythm now held its energy close, as if conserving something unseen. I have learned that silence in space is rarely absence. It is often transition, a system finishing one state before entering another. As Atlas moved along its path, analysts noticed that what vanished first were not the strongest signals, but the most delicate ones. The faint photonic pulses softened, then faded. Molecular emissions slowed, spacing themselves farther apart until they no longer rose above background noise. Heat networks stabilized into symmetry, no longer migrating, no longer correcting. This was not collapse. Collapse is messy. This was completion. Trajectory data soon followed the same pattern. The small deviations that had once strained predictive models diminished. Atlas did not surrender to gravity, but it no longer resisted it either. Its course smoothed, aligning cleanly with forces that had previously been negotiated rather than obeyed. Traveller, this is the moment when realization replaces reaction. For months, the discussion had circled around questions of life and design, but as the object settled into silence, a different understanding began to surface. Not everything that behaves like life is alive. Not everything shaped with care is conscious. Some systems exist to endure, not to awaken. Atlas began to look less like a visitor seeking interaction, and more like a relic in motion. Not dead, but dormant. A structure optimized to survive long journeys through radiation and cold, preserving internal order while minimizing exposure. A vessel of process rather than purpose. Isotopic analysis reinforced this view. Ratios hinted at origins far older than our system formed in environments where ultraviolet light was harsh and matter sparse. These signatures spoke of timescales that dwarf civilizations. Whatever shaped Atlas did so patiently long before Earth learned to listen. I remember staring at those isotope plots late into the night. They did not feel threatening. They felt distant, like echoes from a logic that no longer needed to speak. The silence deepened as Atlas approached observational blind spots near solar glare. During these intervals, tracking became difficult. Yet when the object re-emerged, it appeared unchanged. No sudden activity, no renewed signalling. Just steady passage as if the phase of revelation had ended. Some called this disappointment. Others felt relief. Listener humanity often confuses silence with indifference. But in space, silence can be a form of restraint, a system choosing stability over expression. There is wisdom in that choice, even when it remains mechanical rather than mindful. As public awareness grew, interpretations fractured. Fear rose in some quarters, wonder in others. Markets fluctuated, narratives multiplied faster than data. Yet within observatories, the mood remained subdued. Awe tempered by discipline. Curiosity bound by caution. The realization was not that Atlas was alive. It was that the universe does not require life to produce systems that resemble it. Complexity arises wherever energy and time are given enough room to negotiate. Thermal networks that looked like circulation may have been energy routing. Molecular handedness may have emerged from selective preservation rather than metabolism. Light pulses may have served stabilization rather than communication. And still the resemblance mattered. Because resemblance challenges our definitions. It forces us to ask whether life is a category or a spectrum, whether adaptation belongs only to biology or to matter itself when shaped by deep time. As Atlas moved farther inward, its behavior remained consistent. No new signals emerged, no escalation followed observation. The object neither approached Earth nor avoided it dramatically. It passed within calculated margins, respecting distances that felt intentional, though intention itself remained unproven. Trajectory analysis showed something else as well. The path Atlas followed minimized energy expenditure while maximizing survivability. It skimmed gravitational wells without falling into them. It avoided chaotic regions where debris density rose. This was efficiency written in motion. Efficiency does not imply consciousness, but it does imply optimization. I've come to accept that optimization is one of the universe's quiet talents. Given enough time, matter learns how to persist. Sometimes that persistence looks familiar enough to unsettle us. As the months passed, Atlas became quieter still. The world's attention drifted. Other stories replaced it. Yet the object continued on unchanged, carrying its structure beyond the inner system. In that retreat, another realization settled in. Perhaps the most unsettling idea was not that we were observed, but that we were irrelevant. Atlas did not alter course because of us. It did not react to our scrutiny. It revealed patterns when conditions aligned, then withdrew when they did not. It behaved as though we were incidental, and there is peace in that. Traveller humanity often frames the universe as a stage awaiting our arrival. Atlas reminded us that the universe has been performing its own experiments long before we learned to watch. The silence that followed was not rejection, it was continuation. As Atlas slipped farther away, instruments recorded fewer anomalies. Models stabilized. The object re-entered a category closer to inert, though never fully. A reminder lingered in the data archives, waiting for future minds to revisit. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying the memory of processes older than our language. It does not announce itself. It does not explain. It simply persists. Silence is the universe thinking, and perhaps in that thinking there is room for us to accept what we cannot resolve, to let curiosity coexist with humility, to recognize that understanding is not always the goal. Sometimes witnessing is enough. It's all right to not understand. As Atlas continued its passage, a subtle shift occurred, not in the object itself, but in those who watched it. The data streams thinned, yet the implications grew heavier. With each confirmed measurement archived and cross-checked, the mystery no longer lived in anomalies alone. It lived in what those anomalies asked of us. For decades, science had relied on boundaries. Life and non-life, natural and artificial, signal and noise. Atlas pressed against those lines without crossing them. It behaved too coherently to be dismissed, yet too quietly to be declared alive. It occupied a narrow space where definitions blurred and language struggled to keep pace. Late at night, when the observatory halls emptied and only the hum of servers remained, many of us stared not at new plots, but at old assumptions. We realized how deeply our interpretations depended on familiarity. We recognize life because it resembles us, but what if resemblance is not requirement, only coincidence? The question shifted. It was no longer what Atlas was made of or how it moved. It became about why complexity arises at all, why matter sometimes organizes itself against entropy-holding structure where decay should dominate. Atlas did not answer that question. It reopened it. Consider gravity. It shapes without intention. Radiation erodes without malice. Yet between these forces, islands of order persist. Stars burn steadily. Planets differentiate. Chemistry climbs ladders of improbability. Perhaps Atlas was simply another rung on that ladder, one we had not expected to see moving between stars. The discomfort came from proximity. This was not a distant galaxy or an abstract simulation. This was a body passing through our system, measurable, observable, undeniable. Its presence forced humanity to confront how narrow its cosmic experience truly is. Some analysts proposed that Atlas represented a category we had overlooked entirely, not organism, not machine, but process. A long-lived system shaped to persist through extremes, carrying patterns forward without awareness or intention. A survivor of cosmic selection rather than biological evolution. Others resisted this framing. They argued that intentionality might exist in forms too subtle for our instruments to register. That awareness need not announce itself. That silence could be strategic rather than passive. These ideas were debated carefully, always anchored to data, always restrained. Yet beneath the restraint, something human stirred. Wonder, unease, a quiet humility. Atlas did not threaten us. It did not greet us. It simply reminded us that the universe is capable of complexity far beyond our expectations, and that we are newcomers to its deeper patterns. As public attention faded, the object remained in our equations. Its trajectory, its emissions, its silence became reference points for future models. Atlas changed nothing immediately, yet it altered how questions would be asked from now on. No longer could life be defined solely by growth and reproduction. No longer could intelligence be reduced to communication. The universe had shown us something that operated without asking to be understood, and that restraint felt important. In the quiet aftermath, one realization settled across disciplines. We had been searching for mirrors, signals that reflect us back to ourselves. Atlas offered no mirror, it offered perspective. Perspective is unsettling because it shrinks us without diminishing us. It places humanity not at the centre, but within a continuum of cosmic processes, each shaped by time, energy, and constraint. Atlas did not diminish life on Earth, it contextualized it. As the object moved farther away, its data remained waiting. Waiting for future minds, future instruments, future patience. Perhaps one day similar systems will be found, and patterns will converge. Or perhaps Atlas will remain singular and outlier, that resists explanation indefinitely. Both outcomes are acceptable, because science is not a march toward certainty. It is a dialogue with uncertainty conducted with care and humility. Atlas reminded us of that truth more clearly than any confirmed discovery could have. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves indifferent to our categories, untouched by our debates. It carries no message meant for us, and yet it teaches us simply by passing through. Silence is the universe thinking, and in that silence a question remains, not demanding an answer, but inviting reflection. Not everything that matters must be understood. Some things exist to widen the space in which understanding can grow. For now, Atlas recedes into darkness, leaving behind not fear, but a deeper awareness of how much remains unknown. And perhaps that awareness is the most valuable signal it could have given. It's all right to sit with the question. Tonight the universe does not rush its answers. It allows them to rest suspended between signals, between breaths, between the quiet moments when instruments hum and human thoughts slow. By the time Atlas reached this stage of its passage, something subtle had changed. The data did not disappear. The readings did not collapse into error. They simply softened as if the object had chosen restraint instead of display. In the long hours after the final emission cycle, telescopes remained locked on position. Screens glowed with expectation, yet nothing dramatic arrived. No surge, no flare, only a steady continuation of motion, precise and calm. Silence is the universe thinking, and Atlas seemed to understand that principle deeply. What had once pulsed now rested, not extinguished but held. Researchers describe this phase as a quiet plateau, not an ending, not a failure of detection, but a deliberate stillness. Late at night in control rooms washed with blue light, scientists watched graphs flatten into gentle lines. The absence of novelty carried weight. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, yet chooses when not to speak. This was the moment when fear loosened its grip. Without spectacle, the mind relaxes. Without constant anomaly, curiosity becomes reflective. Atlas continued inward, obeying gravity, while subtly refining its path. No thrust was visible. No exhaust betrayed intention. And yet the trajectory remained improbably clean, as though noise itself had been filtered away. Listener, it is easy to mistake silence for emptiness. But every astronomer learns the opposite. The most important signals often arrive when nothing seems to happen, between radio bursts and thermal spikes, meaning accumulates quietly. Atlas offered no final declaration. It offered restraint. Models were revised again this time to include absence as data. The pauses between emissions were logged. The duration of stillness was measured. Entropy, after all, is not only decay, it is distribution. And Atlas distributed its activity sparingly, like a system conserving coherence across vast distance. As days passed, public attention drifted. Headlines softened. Panic gave way to speculation to fatigue. That too mattered. Whatever Atlas represented, it did not demand urgency. It did not accelerate human response. It allowed humanity to slow itself, to observe rather than react. In this quieter phase, deeper patterns emerged. Long-term integrations revealed stability where chaos was expected. The object's surface temperatures equalized without overshoot. Radiation absorption settled into predictable bands. Even background noise seemed to arrange itself around Atlas. as if the surrounding space adjusted in sympathy. I remember nights like this from earlier years, when comets faded after perihelion and left only faint trails on photographic plates. The excitement always peaks, then resolves into patience. Atlas felt familiar in that way, and unfamiliar at the same time. It carried the comfort of routine observation paired with the unease of unresolved meaning. Traveller, if Atlas possessed awareness, it did not express it theatrically. If it carried design, it revealed that design through moderation, excess draws attention, efficiency survives. Across nature, the longest-lasting systems are quiet ones. Stars burn steadily, orbits repeat, life itself whispers rather than shouts. As the object crossed deeper observational thresholds, committees debated classification once more, not with urgency but with care. Language matters, labels shape thought. Atlas resisted labels by refusing extremes. It was neither inert nor overtly communicative. It existed in a middle state that science rarely names but often encounters. Instruments continued their vigil. Dust counters recorded negligible increase. Magnetic sensors detected no abrupt shifts. Gravitational modelling confirmed stability within margins too narrow for coincidence. Every confirmation reduced anxiety and increased wonder. There is comfort in consistency even when its origin remains unknown. The nights grew quieter, fewer alerts, longer stretches of uninterrupted data. In that calm, humanity adjusted its posture toward the unknown, not as a threat, not as a promise, not as simply as presence. A reminder that the universe does not revolve around urgency nor around explanation. Somewhere between Mars and Earth Atlas remained unresolved. And that was acceptable. It's all right to not understand. Science does not demand closure. It demands honesty. And the honest conclusion of this phase was simple. Nothing catastrophic occurred. Nothing miraculous declared itself. Something passed, observed, and continued. The final reports of this segment used restrained language, no speculation of intent, no declarations of life, only careful acknowledgement of anomaly without escalation. The object was catalogued, tracked, and allowed to proceed. That decision carried maturity. Humanity did not need to interrupt every mystery. As Atlas moved onward, the instruments followed until distance diluted resolution. Eventually, even the best sensors surrendered detail to noise. The object blended back into the broader rhythm of space, another moving body among countless others. Yet the memory of its patterns lingered. In the end, what Atlas offered was not revelation, but perspective. A demonstration that complexity can exist without confrontation. That organization does not require announcement. That silence can be an active state. Tonight the universe whispers again, not with answers, but with permission to rest. And so we let Atlas go, not solved, not dismissed, but integrated into the long archive of things observed and left open. The stars did not rearrange. Earth did not change course. But something subtle shifted in the way we listened. Beneath the vast field of gravity and radiation, humanity learned once more how small it is and how peaceful that smallness can feel. In observatories across the planet, logs were closed and reopened not because answers arrived, but because the act of watching had changed the watchers. The hum of cooling systems, the slow sweep of antennas, the patient rotation of Earth beneath the stars all resumed their ordinary rhythms. Atlas had not ended a chapter. It had underlined a sentence humanity keeps relearning. We are participants in observation, not masters of it. Data does not belong to us. It visits, it passes, and sometimes it leaves behind only alignment rather than explanation. In classrooms, students asked quieter questions. In laboratories, discussions grew more careful. The absence of drama became a lesson in scale. Vast distances do not require spectacle to matter. They require time. As Atlas receded, it carried nothing from Earth, no signal, no reply, no imprint. That too was meaningful. Contact does not always involve exchange. Sometimes it is proximity without interaction, coexistence without collision. The universe remains generous in that way, offering encounters that expand humility rather than certainty, and nights that invite rest instead of resolution without urgency or demand. Dreamer. As this story gently settles, the sky above you remains unchanged, yet something within has quietly shifted. We followed a distant object through data and silence, through light curves and human reactions, and discovered that the greatest weight was never carried by certainty, but by feeling. Science traced its careful lines, instruments listened faithfully, and still, the universe kept more than it revealed. 3 Atlas continues its passage unannounced, unresolved, moving through gravity and time with no obligation to explain itself. And perhaps that is the lesson it leaves behind. That mystery is not a flaw in our understanding, but a companion to it. That wonder survives not in answers, but in the patience to observe. We are small beneath these distances, brief against these orbits, yet not insignificant. To watch, to measure, to question gently, these are human acts of quiet courage. In the vast silence between stars, our curiosity becomes a form of connection. Tonight, the universe whispers again, not to alarm us, but to remind us that it is still alive, still unfolding, still beyond the edges of our knowing. If this story found you in a moment of stillness, you may rest here a little longer. Stay curious. The universe will keep watch